Mike will start off with a quick statement, then we'll go right into questions. So I'll kick it over to you, Coach.
Well, good to see everyone. Kind of in a different role. I wish I was sitting here talking about a game that we just won, but something a little bit different. But just want to say that I'm honored when Dr. Robbins called me up and said, would I step in and try to keep the ship afloat? And truthfully, that's kind of my job right now, walking in here and trying to gather as much information I can. I know we're in a very difficult situation, but I can promise you that this leadership team is working extremely hard to find out how we got here and how we can get out of it. And I feel very good about the progress we've made in the last week, doing our due diligence. Crystal and Eric Barnes, some people that have been around this department for a long time, I think, bring some history. But it is a challenging time, and there's no doubt about it. But I feel good about what we're doing right now, trying to increase communication, trying to answer as many questions as I can. I've been on the job for a week, so be kind to me. That's all I can say right now. But I'm very excited. You know, this is a place that I've put a lot of blood and sweat and tears in, and I love this community. I love this university, and when I was asked to step in and plug a hole for a small period of time, or whenever it may be, there was no doubt in my mind that I would love to do it. So I'm honored, and hopefully I can answer some questions that you have. But I think moving forward right now, you know, I was at the Big 12 meetings last week, and very excited about that opportunity for this department, and I think we're working very hard to make that transition as smooth as possible. Brent Blaylock and Crystal Swindlehurst have been on the transition team, and the good part of it is that I was a member of that too, so I've got a little bit of information on what we need to do, and I think our first priority was announcing the ticket increase. And that has been something that has been going on for a lot longer than just right now. I think they have done their due diligence to look back and kind of see where we're at in relationship to the Big 12 and to really the Tucson community. Because I've always been a firm believer that my job as a softball coach back then was to sell football season tickets. The more season tickets I could sell, the more it would help the big picture, and that hasn't changed. I think right now, if I look back, we're a pretty good bargain, and so I think there was a time right now that we needed to kind of get into the game when we moved into the Big 12, and we have made some increases, but I think looking at the response so far, it's been positive. I'm sure there's been some negative also, but you know, we'll kind of deal with that as we go, but I'm just thankful to be here, and you know, I'm a servant leader, and that's what I'm here to do, is try to serve this university as long as Bobby asked me to do it.
When Dr. Robbins asked you to do this, what did he specifically tell you you were going to be doing or ask you to do?
He basically just asked me if I would be the interim athletic director. It was that simple. And I had had a couple of trips planned. One was to Italy, and another speaking engagement. I said, well, there's a couple things that are on my docket right now that I'm a man of commitment, and I would like to fulfill these commitments, and I did. So right after that happened, I was actually leaving that next week, and so I've been on the job about a week right now and haven't moved out of this office. So that's been a little different for me. You know, I always loved being in the office in the morning, but being on the field in the afternoon, and now sitting in a chair all day has been a little different for me, but one that I've enjoyed right now. And you know, I think I bring a different, maybe a different approach to the group. All I know is how to build a culture, and one of the big things in athletics and on your team is just solid communication. I mean, you got to know what everyone's doing, and looking in right now, those are some things that I'm trying to enhance a little bit, is how do we communicate all of this information so that the right people are on the same page, and Anything that goes out of this office has been thought through and with a fine-tooth comb, and you know, it's one collective voice. And so that was kind of been my theme, is that, you know, when you get in tough situations like this, you have to rely on your people. We have very good people here. But on the other hand, it has to be a collective effort moving forward, because there is some trying times, but, you know, revenues and expenses aren't quite matching up for a lot of different reasons. If you kind of look back the last 3 or 4 years, we've gone through a very challenging time in athletics, you know, with the NC2A deregulation, COVID. When I first got here as an advisor to Dave, and I want to thank Dave for the job he did. I think he did a very, very good job, and gave me some big opportunities in my latter parts of my career in coaching. I really felt like this challenge right now was difficult for a lot of reasons that we really didn't have control over. When I got on the job, we had just hired 6 new head coaches. Well, that takes money, you know, and so we have done a lot of good things to get our football program where it belongs. I think our basketball program's in a good shape, and I look around the department, we have some very good coaches that are doing great jobs. But there's a price to pay that is different than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And so I think right now, moving forward, we have to look at a different model to make this all happen. And so right now, we're just trying to go back to a little bit of history as to how did we get here, and what do we need to do to find something that can be affordable, yet keep our programs competing for national championships. Because moving into the Big 12, I think we have an opportunity to be in the top part of that conference. And then if you look at what's happening in football, God knows what tomorrow's going to look like, you know, with football. So there's a lot of moving parts that I think have got us in this position right now. I can't really pick one thing, but I do think that we need to take a snapshot of it all and try to formulate a plan moving forward that we can all work with.
Mike, do you have any interest in this job long term?
At this point, no. I'm a Band-Aid right now, and I'm doing what Bobby Robbins would like me to do. And, you know, right now I'm taking life day after day. And it's, you know, whatever this place needs, I'm here because I love this place. But I think moving forward, I'm sure when the time comes that they're going to be looking nationwide for someone that can come in here and bring in a talent level that needs to be in this chair, because there are some challenging moments moving forward. And the big thing is dealing with finances.
And that finance, I wanted to ask you about the hiring freeze and how much it affects on-court coaches. If that's happening, does that affect this department? I know there's some positions that haven't been filled, but is that due to the hiring freeze?
Well, the hiring freeze, yeah, it does affect us in a small way right now. We have some positions right now that have been not filled yet, but have been on the docket. So I think you're going to see us filling a few. We've got to get our football staff in order and ready to roll. So there are some things that I think right now, immediately, that we will face the challenge of completing those. But moving forward, we're truly looking for ways that we can kind of get our hands around this thing, you know. And so I can promise you the first week has been nothing more than looking at numbers and looking at finances and looking at models and looking at ways that we can get better at what we're doing right now.
Were you given any indication from Dr. Robbins about how long you expect this interim role to be?
No, sir. It's a day-by-day thing. You know, I may not even get all my paperwork done to move into this position, and I might be gone. So, you know, truthfully, I'm just hunkering down like I'm the athletic director right now, and trying to make some decisions that are going to be best to move this forward. And I think as I walked in, I've been around this department for a long time, so it's not like I didn't understand what is going on and how we're operating. So right now, my big thing right now is just dealing with tightening our communication between all of us, the executive staff, the leadership staff, our coaches. Being a coach, sometimes I felt like we didn't have all the answers and all the information, and that's close to my heart, and I want to make sure that our lines of communication go from top to bottom.
How actively involved are you right now in Tommy Lloyd's contract?
I have not been involved with it, but I do know that it is a high priority.
Just for bookkeeping, where were you when you got the call? Because they said you were on vacation. Were you in Italy when Dr. Robbins called you?
Actually, I was in my home in Tucson and had just played a round of golf and was enjoying retirement and all the nice things that come with it. And yeah, that's kind of where it started. And then I left a few days later to finish my trip to Italy.
Still sharing an office with Danny Martinez?
That's a great one, yes. No, Danny, in fact, I'm trying to get his name put on that office to make him feel good. But no, I've moved into another office, and we'll work that all out. But yeah, it was kind of fun to share an office with Danny. At least the lights were on all the time.
Mike, you've been here a long time, obviously. I think in that time, there have been a few ADs in the center, Live and Good and Greg. Through the media, I think your name had been mentioned, maybe a possibility along the line. Did you ever consider joining the fraternity of ADs back in the day?
Yeah, I've been here since Ed Dempsey, so he was the one that brought me here. So I've been through all of them and admire each and every one of them. But there was a moment, I can't remember back when it was, I think maybe when Jim Livengood left that I had an interest. But I always felt like if I was going to pursue that as a career, that I probably would have had done that earlier to get a little more expertise under my belt. But I've always had a little interest in administration. I like people, and I think one of my strengths is building a culture. And I think the athletic director has to be able to build a culture, and I've been able to see a lot of them do it differently. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that have changed in today's climate that you have to look at what the needs are and what really this chair is all about. I can handle people and I can handle a lot of things, but I think moving forward, we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we're checking every box, and I'm sure we'll do that.
Literally, since you walked away, NIL exploded, transfer portal exploded. How have you looked at that over the course of the last 2 years?
Well, it's been overwhelming for me. When I got out of the game, I looked like I knew what I was doing because I got out of it right before all of that hit. The transfer portal and NIL and then conference realignment. And so there was a lot of things that were happening, a lot of moving parts that, truthfully, I did not think that I agreed with some of it, but it was the climate of college athletics, and we have to deal with it. And so I've been able to sit back and kind of watch it develop. I love listening to radio talk shows and hearing all the experts out there talk about it because it is a very challenging time. And I still think there's a lot of things right now. Is it sustainable or not? Number one. Number two, I think that the picture changes every week or every month. And I still don't think that we're seeing all of the changes that are going to occur. I know there's an advisory board that was put together between the Big Ten and the SEC. Well, that kind of tells me that something is moving, in that area. And so we're going to kind of have to wait and see. But right now, my focus right now is on this department. And what can I do in the period of time that I'm here to keep the ship moving in the right direction and maybe hopefully make some improvements. And I think the biggest improvement for me is just the communication piece. Making sure information is out there. And as soon as I get information, I'm very transparent, and I want people to know why we're doing things. No, go ahead.
Mike, there's a lot of questions in the building, obviously. I think Tommy referred to a get-together at Culinary last week or whatever. Were you part of that? And what's the mood of the people that you'll be working with?
Yeah, well, I was a part of that. And it was an opportunity for I think Tommy has been wonderful for this department, and he understands how important it is to build a culture. You know, I always go back when we were all in one building, and we all, I mean, I used to dress next to Lute and Dick Tomey, and we would always be talking. And as we have improved things, we have also kind of been disassociated because people are all in different places. And this place has gotten bigger. I mean, when I was first here, our staff meetings were in the little auditorium, and we used up half of it. And then we used all of it. And then now we don't have a place big enough to do that. But that's the growth of athletics right now. And, you know, I feel very good that we're in a good place. It's going to take some time, but it's not something that I haven't seen before. We've been through some tough times during my career here, and I just think we need to tighten things up.
Being a bridge between the last era of athletic director and the next one, a lot of interim athletic directors around the country come in and they just provide that bridge, provide that sort of safety net for the athletic department. But you came in here and in your opening statement you talked about direct things that you wanted to do to figure out the financial challenges in those situations. How do you balance being a bridge and being proactive in that role?
Well, I think the one thing that I have that maybe some people walking in might not is a little bit of history being in this department and being able to watch it grow as I'm, in front of my eyes. And so I walked in with some ideas. I mean, I was Dave's advisor for the last 2 years, so it's not like I haven't been around at all. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what I can, but I also understand what my limitations are. And the first thing that we did is Tommy and I got together and did a social for our people just to let them know that, we're going to be all right. I think sometimes not hearing anything is the worst thing. And so I wanted to comfort them knowing that, I'm here to help them. I'm here to serve them. And I think it hasn't changed over the years. We're here to serve our student athletes. But as a former staff member, I think sometimes we need to also serve our coaches and our staff. And I'm one that loves to walk around the building and make sure people feel good about why they're here. And so that was an easy thing for me to do. And so I'm going to take the things that I feel I'm strong at, things that I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. But a lot of this has been gathering information, so I'm trying to meet with everyone, kind of find out where we're at as a group, and then hopefully when the next person walks in here, I can hand off things that, we're still moving in the right direction.
In the information gathering, you had mentioned revenues and expenses not adding up. Outside of, coaching turnover, coaching salaries, things like that, which are different types of items when it comes to balancing a budget, what are some areas that you've seen revenues and expenses maybe not adding up?
Well, I think we just talked about the issues that have come before us. There's a lot of reasons why we are at where we're at right now. And so now we have to find a new model moving forward to try to correct those things. I don't think you're going to correct them because a lot of that was stuff that we had to do. I think sometimes people don't understand there's a lot of decisions you make that you have to think about a lot of different things that go into the bucket before you can make the decision. And so I'm just trying to make sure that I understand why we're making decisions and try to be as educated as I can, and then be able to feel comfortable using my expertise to do the things that I can right now to kind of keep things going. So I'm trying to connect with the coaches, trying to connect with the staff, kind of connect with our leadership team, and I just told them, basically we need to lean on one another. We need to be collectively together, and I just kind of feel like we can communicate a lot better. Maybe I'm used to having a pitching coach and a hitting coach, and a strength coach, and when we walk in a room, we better know what we're doing with these athletes, and I want to feel the same way in this department. We're all on the same page moving forward.
One of the aspects of the transition to the Big 12 is that you have to get your in-house media production up to code, basically, for all those ESPN Plus streaming broadcasts. How high on the priority list is that, and how daunting of a task is that?
Yes, we've been moving and talking about the transition for a long time, and like I said, we have a transition team that's been working on this for a year plus, and we know that that's one of the aspects that's got a price tag on it, but I think right now we're trying to find some solutions, and I think we're getting very close to finding those.
And when you walked in day one, you know, how is this like, I know this is different and it's bigger, but when you walked in day one as the softball coach here, and you had to build that program, what are the sort of the similarities as when you walked in now? Did you sort of go back to that and think, oh, the first thing I have to do is this, then I have to meet with this person and figure this out, and then that? Is that what your thought process was like?
Sure. I mean, when I came here in '85, it was a group of people that didn't know who I was, and I had a vision. And so a big part of it was me being able to portray that vision of these people. But at the end of the day, it was making sure that they knew that I cared about them, because I didn't recruit them. And I had a group of kids that I had to take care of. And so I think it's dealing with people, making people feel good about why they're here and what they're doing. And I think it was no different when I walked into this position. You know, my first job was about the people. The second part about is all the obstacles that we have in front of us, that how are we going to collectively start working on these things and start checking the box. And I must say that it's a daunting task, but I think we have great people here that are doing a great job, and it's just a matter of putting everything together and making decisions that are going to be best for the University of Arizona moving forward, and in an exciting time when we're moving into the Big 12. You know.
Can you give any insight as far as what that different model for the business and college athletics looks like as it pertains to Arizona?
Let's put it this way. I have my thoughts. I would not want to speculate on it at this moment and have you run with it, but yeah, it's got to be different. You know, I think that I've always felt like the athletic department is the front door of the university, and it's kind of a marketing arm for the university to bring in students. And I just think moving forward that we've got to look at some different pots that we need to deal with to kind of make this all happen. You know, how successful you want your athletic department, I think, is going to have a task on the university itself. The days of a department being self-sufficient, I think, is getting tougher and tougher because of a lot of things that have happened right now. So, number one, trying to get us out of where we're at right now. But number two, moving forward, what does the model look like? And I don't have that answer at this point, but I know it's got to be different than what it has been over the last 45 years that I've been here.
So John Arnold also had indicated in several statements that, you know, athletics being a separate entity is maybe not the way to move forward. Does that mean that there's going to be more monetary sharing coming from the university in support of athletics? Is that kind of maybe the model we're headed to?
I think that's a topic that's under a lot of discussion right now. I would hate to speculate on anything and give you anything to run with it. I know most of you well enough, you know, so.
You worked under a couple interims. What did you take from seeing how they worked, what the job was for them? What did you kind of take from that?
Well, I know the common thread was always the same challenge that we're dealing with right now is finances, and then trying to get your programs where you want them. There's a price tag that you have to pay. You know, I thought Jed Fish did a hell of a job here. And there was a price that we had to pay to get that to where it's at. Every athletic director that I've worked with had a little different approach. You know, some were very hands-on people type athletic directors. Some were more a little bit different, okay? And I don't know, they all had their strengths, and they all did the job a different way. So I think it just depends on the person. You know, I will always be a people person, so I think that's kind of what I rely on. But someone maybe just someone that's loves to gather information and crunch numbers, and you know, you have to have a little bit of all of that to be able to balance the books at the end of the day. It's just getting tougher to balance the books, you know.
What would you tell the next person, whenever it is, whomever it is, about this place that you've been a part of for 35 years?
Well, Tucson's a very unique place. It's a small, big city. It's to me, it's a college town. To me, there's a lot more positives than there are negatives. I love the passion of our fans, and for me, I always go back to there was many times I wanted to leave here, and every time I came back after going on a trip to explore maybe another opportunity, I always came back to the people. And I think there's just a very unique set of people that really care about the University of Arizona, that care about Tucson. And I think the more people that we can have around here that truly that's important to them, then I think we have a chance of making this successful again.
Mike, John Perrin kept this athletic department in the black for years. Are there elements in how he did that that will work in today's atmosphere?
I'm sure there are elements, but I think the challenges and what's in front of us is a little bit different. You know, I think, you know, we've always been here to serve our athletes, student athletes, but then when they deregulated, the NC2A had a deregulation on what we could do, we started doing more. And so I think some of the things that John was looking at back then, it was probably easier to keep a hold of, where now it's becoming more difficult to keep a hold of it. Because anytime you deregulate, it's kind of like the transfer portal. It's a Wild Wild West, right? And so, yeah, there's some factors today that were completely different then, so it's kind of hard to match. John was a brilliant guy, and I think John, I'm sure there's a lot of things John did that would work at this point, but it would have to look a little bit different than it did back then.
Do you think this has to come from the government side as well, maybe for the benefit of all universities across the country?
Most certainly. Yeah, we're not the Lone Ranger. I mean, if I start talking to my people around the country, there's a lot of people that are in the same position trying to face some of these things that have occurred over the last 3 years. I mean, COVID was a tough thing for us, and to try to keep your doors open during COVID, it was a challenge. And so I think we've done a lot of the right things, but I think now we've kind of put the brakes on and said, wait, moving forward, what do we need to do to make this thing work? And like I said, that's the information piece that I don't have everything in front of me right now, but I promise you that we have very talented people here that have a passion for this place that are going to make this place better. And I go back to telling them all, you know, let's make it 1% better every day, and we'll crawl out of this. But there are some challenges.
Last question, I'm going to go to Brett, and then just so I know there's a couple people who had some softball-specific questions, we'll do a little scrum afterwards on the side here for specific softball questions. But Brett, what you're going to get?
Part of joining the Big 12 is sort of, as you said earlier, finding the place amongst the other Big 12 school programs, and Arizona and ASU also are going to be entering with more sports teams on average than the rest. Kind of a two-parter here. Do you envision that U of A does have to address the idea of potentially cutting sports or balancing that? And if that does become part of the conversation, how does having been a coach help you be a bridge to that for whoever the next person is to be in this seat, in the sense that presumably you're someone who would probably defend and step in front of a bus for your team? How does that help you give great insight into what that process may be like?
Well, I've always been a firm believer of an athletic department, and the escalation of football and basketball have kind of caused us to take a look at everything else. And yeah, the average is 17 sports in the Big 12. I'm hoping that we don't get to that point for a lot of different reasons, but I can't say that that's not going to be something that will be looked at. But I'm hoping that we do not have to cut any sports here, because I don't think cutting sports is the answer to the problems that we have right now. If you look at it. And then you have to look at Title IX. There's a lot of different things that go into this. And so I think we'll be very sensitive to all of those considerations, and if the time comes that we have to make tough decisions, then we're going to make sure that we have the right foundation in our decision-making to make that happen. But just because 17 is the number in the Big 12 does not necessarily mean that that's the right number at the University of Arizona.
Thank you, Coach.
Nothing about softball, my God.
We're gonna do it over here on the side.
Okay. Thank you.